You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. This is 12 Newsmakers.
We're talking about jobs, we're talking about our children's future, and we're talking about an opportunity for Cincinnati. An opportunity to do what every other major city in Ohio has already done, to qualify for state building assistance dollars.
With just days left until the May 6th election, the governor of Ohio was in town this week to stump for the Cincinnati Public Schools bond issue. Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. CPS is going back to the voters this Tuesday with a revision of the bond proposal that lost by razor-thin margin last November. Here are the numbers. The proposal is a sweeping 10-year program to rebuild all of the physical facilities in the district. The $4.61 million bond issue is designed to raise $480 million over a 28-year period. For the owner of a $100,000 home, that would translate to an additional $134.89 per year. These funds would be matched by $210 million from the state and $170 million from the city and county as part of the stadium tax deal. All in all, the proposed $985 million facilities plan will take 10 years to implement and result in a district of 35 new buildings and 31 renovated buildings. That's 14 fewer buildings than now exist, reflecting the projected decline in student population. To discuss the proposal, I am joined by Alton Frailey, the superintendent of the district, Sally Warner, the president of the school board, Jim Erling, the chairperson of COAST, Citizens Opposed to Spending and Taxes. Welcome to Newsmakers, everybody.
Morning,
Jim,
Jan.
welcome for the first time. Alton, Sally, let's start by last November, voters almost passed this, less than 700 vote margin. Did the district make any changes in the proposal in response to what you heard on the election trail last fall? Is there anything that you responded to and altered?
The proposal, we cannot change the proposal. The proposal is an agreement between the Ohio Schools Facilities Commission, commissioned by the state of Ohio, and the district to bring our buildings up to the standards that will be the same for all rural, suburban, and urban districts. We cannot change that. We have to bring them up to that standard. So no, we did not make changes in what we proposed last year and this year. The millage is a little lower because the property tax value assessment came in and the property values went up, so the millage went down.
And I think that's an important thing to stress here. A lot of people see their property values go up and they think their taxes automatically go up because of that. In fact, the tax rate goes down because of that, right?
Yes.
This is to raise a specific amount of money. Have to explain that every time we run into one of these. Alton, on this question, and Sally was bringing up the important tie to the state on this, that the state is really driving a lot of this program. What happens to that state money, $210 million commitment, if this doesn't pass? Can we just go put it back on in November and next May? And is that money just there for whenever we want to tap it?
It's my understanding, according to the governor and other state officials, that if we don't have our funds secured by August of this year, that we do run the risk of losing those state matching dollars. Many would say that, well, those dollars will be there forever, don't worry about that. But right now, with the state having the trouble that it's having financially, how can we be assured of that?
So you would, at best, have to go back and renegotiate even the potential availability of that. And given what Governor Taft just said, am I correct in saying that this is the last major district, last urban district that has not approved this?
I think maybe one, Akron perhaps, I believe, has not approved it yet.
Akron's working out sort of a different deal where they're going to use some sales tax. They failed also in November, but they're trying to organize something different.
Jim, okay, essentially the same proposal that we saw last time with the few alterations we just talked about. Why is your organization opposed to this?
We were opposed to it back in November for the same reasons that we're opposed to it this May. Basically, our position has been, look, there's some real issues with public trust here. There's been some problems in the past, over the past 2 decades, I think by everybody's admission, that there has been some financial mismanagement, kids have not been educated, so on and so forth. So let's do the sensible thing, implement phase 1 of the plan, responsibly complete it, bring it in under time, make sure we don't have
Which,
any
in
more.
fact, the school district already has the money for phase one, right?
Correct. Let's make sure we don't get back into any Paul Brown Stadium fiascos with everything coming in over budget. Then go back to the voters and come back for the money at that point in time. And if I could just briefly respond to a point about the state money in this that Governor Taft made and Mr. Frailey alluded to. It's my understanding that those funds are essentially under lock and key. That money was secured from the tobacco lawsuit settlements, and that I don't think anybody's going to be touching it for two reasons. I don't think they can. Secondly, I don't think any politician would dare start taking money from the schools.
Now, you know, the governor was asked that directly when he was in town, and what he said was, if they don't pass by August, they're going to have to go to the end of the line behind everybody else. You know, there's 612 districts, other ones will get the chance. He said there is no guarantee. He made that pretty clear, you know, when asked directly that question. And Jim, you know, you keep saying financial mismanagement. The reason that the Ohio Schools Facilities Commission was started in Ohio was because Ohio was ranked in a national survey last in the condition of its buildings. So people want to always say somehow the Cincinnati School Board mismanaged the funds, but all of Ohio was last in the nation. Finally, Ohio's stepping up and saying, we agree there's a problem, we're willing to put some money behind it, we're using the tobacco settlement funds, and this is how we're going to partner with each of these districts to make it happen. And you also say, oh, you know, educating our children. Cincinnati was just ranked 20th out of 612 districts in our rate of improvement for the district. We were honored by the state of Ohio, tops in Hamilton County. So when you keep making those broad statements, you know, I think those are false and they need to be corrected.
Sally, it wasn't my statement, it was Rick Williams' statement on this program last November when he acknowledged that they didn't properly handle the schools and that there was some mismanagement with the money. So we're merely adopting what a colleague of yours has already admitted.
What about this point? And this was also brought up in the fall. What about this point of breaking up the funding cycle rather than going for putting the entire 900 million plus package together at once? Why not go in these phases? Why not, in effect, spend the money you already got, demonstrate and prove that you can spend it efficiently, and then come back to the voters and do it in smaller chunks where you've addressed this trust issue? Alton?
Well, my concern is that, one, these projects are so linked and they feed off one another that if we start breaking them up and then having to go back and vote for each segment, what are the chances or what are the risks that the project will be interrupted, and then we'll have some children who will not have adequate facilities?
And I would second that by saying that, you know, right now, bond issue rates are extremely low. We can lock in the entire project if we pass this in May. We can bond all of the project. Every time interest rates go up 1 percentage point, it costs us $70 million. So if we really want to do this as a city, the cheapest way to do it is to get it in now. We have the lowest bond rates in 40 years. Also, phase 2 needs to start planning in January of 2004. Construction will start January 2005. We're ready to almost start phase 2.
Jim?
2 points in response. First of all, phase 1 has already been changed because of some changing demographics here in the area. And if that's happened here in just the past few months, how can we be sure that these predictions, population, so on and so forth, are going to be accurate over the next 10 years? And yet they want the voters to hand over $1 billion in state and local taxpayers' money for this plan that may or may not be accurate at this point in time.
The demographics were done by the state of Ohio, projected out over 10 years. They are projecting a decline. We are doing 14 fewer schools, and also worked into the actual plan is that at the beginning of each segment, we will revisit those demographics and make sure that they didn't go up or down based on our projections. So that's part of the process. And the change that we did make in phase 1, I mean, that's a good thing. We keep readdressing it. That really didn't change anything about demographic. It's changed the location of a school, but not the number of children that would be attending.
What would happen, to play out Jim's point a minute, if in fact 3 years down the road the demographics now look different, and maybe you were going to do one less renovation and one less new construction? I don't know, that's just a hypothetical, so that you didn't need as much money as you are saying and you're asking for right now. Is there any way of returning that money or not collecting as much money and adjusting that for the voter 3 years down the road?
That is my understanding. I'm not the best in Ohio State school finance at this point yet, but that We can only assess millage for what we need to pay whatever debt we have. So any adjustments made to the plan because of unforeseen circumstances or whatnot would result in our not asking for the funds to pay for it.
So you think that there could be a return? You think that legally you could not collect certain money? Jim,
Right.
does that satisfy you?
No, I mean, forgive me for being cynical on that issue. I don't think there'll be any return of money. Clearly, there's been some problems here with the school. For example, there was a commitment to pay for performance. That suddenly disappeared, and the teachers union rejected it. And now we're going to trust them with $1 billion, and I'm sure Sally and Alton have nothing but the best of intentions, but they're dealing with a lot of issues here. I can't imagine tax money being taken from the voters and then suddenly being returned. I just don't buy it.
On this question of trust, I think there's two areas that I'd like to explore. And Alton, a couple of months ago, you made, or you at least were quoted in the Post as saying, "We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the past 10 years in the name of reform. We walked down the rodeo drive of school reform and picked out programs, but what do we have to show for it?" In effect, you were making a judgment after you'd been here for 4 months or so that, gee, all of the stuff that we have been talked to and invested in school reform programming, you in a sense were saying we wasted money. Why should we then turn around and trust the schools to spend money wisely on buildings?
First of all, that was not a direct quote, with all due respect.
It was in quotes, all I can say.
Right, but that was a 2-hour lunch period, and those comments were made in different parts of the lunch period, and that was not the right context. But I like everyone else, I'm very concerned that we want to make certain that we are the best return for the dollar, the best bang for the buck, and that we are improving our performance. And we have improved. We have improved. However, I'm a lot more aggressive in wanting that. But at the same time, though, there's no better time than right now to fix our schools.
So you would argue that, in fact, Jim brought up the thing about the teachers backing away from the pay for performance. I quoted this. You would argue, though, that we are making progress in academic?
Well, the numbers prove that out. We have a 7.7 percentage point gain. We had the highest percentage point improvement in Hamilton County, 20th out of 612 districts in the state of Ohio. So we have made some improvements if you're looking at just improvements. And now what Mrs. Warner and I are talking about is, one is we recognize the improvements, but I'm saying, guys, I want more, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay. I'm going to make a little switch here, let the people upstairs know we've only scratched the surface. I want you all to stay for the second part of the show, so stay right there. Stay tuned. Right after we come back, we'll raise the question about what are the implications of the discovery of lead in the schools this past couple weeks. Welcome back. I still want to continue pursuing this whole issue about trust. 2 weeks ago, the district revealed that the maintenance on some of its older buildings has been so lax that students face an immediate threat of lead poisoning. Aside from the health issue, for many, the revelation raises political questions about the timing of the discovery that is so close to the vote on the school bond issue.
So why now? I mean, why now?
I think it's just real interesting timing that they find it today, throw a bunch of people in a selected neighborhood out into the street, because those people then will vote for the tax.
Or is this just a reason that they want to close the school? They're saying it's in there. This is just a reason they're closing the school.
Sally, Alton, not so much the specifics of the lead, but the point is this raises a question about whether the schools, on an important issue like health, can manage its maintenance dollars. What do you say to this?
Well, it's important to note that as far as the timing issue, is this was not triggered by the school district. A student was doing routine testing, we're told, had a high level of lead in their blood, and the city came to the school district and made us aware of that. They tested the home, didn't find it there. They found some lead paint chips and whatnot in the school. We began immediately working with the city. This was not a staged thing by the school system at all. It is not that we don't care about children's health at all. It's just that this was pointed out. I mean, we have old buildings. They use lead-based paint to paint these old buildings. We're not surprised that you find lead in lead paint in old buildings.
Well, and given that, you can't be surprised because they are old buildings. We all know lead paint, having lived in old houses myself. You know the lead paint is there. Containing it is important. Apparently there was a lead abatement program in the 80s that fell by the wayside, but that raises these basic questions about the ability to manage the buildings if we invest $900 million plus. What about, okay, the timing issue is one thing. What about the question of capabilities here?
Well, I think in this instance, the health department used to do all of, we are really not equipped to do lead testing. They were the one that monitored all that, just as the fire department monitors, our buildings to make sure they're safe in building operations but they apparently ceased their testing program and never informed us of it. So it comes as a surprise to us that they've not been there continuing to do that also.
But with lead, one of the ways that you contain it is maintaining the paint coats that cover it up. And you certainly were aware that there was lead and that paint was deteriorating and re-exposing the lead-based layers of the paint, right? You didn't need the city to tell you that.
Well, I think we weren't aware that there was a threat of any lead stuff there. We would have taken care of it. But we also do not have the money. In '93, we went out with the bond issue. It did not pass. These windows need to be replaced. I mean, over time, it's sort of like rust on your car. You just can't control it. These windows are just deteriorated to the point that even a fresh coat of paint is going to begin to peel right off. The windows need to be replaced in most of these buildings in order to contain that lead.
And let me be clear, the program of renovation and or replacement would deal with all of the buildings and all of the lead paint issues?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Jim, what about this?
Well, first of all, Sally's point about not having the money. If you look back over the past 10, 20 years, you've had teachers among the highest paid in the state of Ohio. You've had board members that have been, Jan Leslie, for example, that left with a six-figure severance package. Where was the money going? There was plenty of money, and it wasn't because of a string of failed levies. Why wasn't the money directed towards maintenance of the schools? Clearly it was there. Secondly, the thing that's terribly convenient about this is how can the disrepair and neglect over the past 2 decades and these rundown schools now provide the pretext to pass levies later on? It just seems the best of both worlds, that they can neglect the schools. Years later, they now invoke that as an excuse for passing more levies and getting more money.
A couple of points there. What about this use of the availability of money?
Well, the money to replace windows is bond issue. It's capital money. It's totally separate from the operating levies. But I think that, while you could say there were times when we were very lean on money that we chose not to repair the roofs or whatever, I think once the school gets to a certain age, it needs new windows, it needs new boilers, it needs new roofs. I mean, these things needed to be replaced years ago, and we didn't have the money to do it. It gets to the point where painting is no longer going to clean up the window. They need to be replaced. Those are the original windows in a school built at the turn of the century. They should have been replaced years ago. And we have tried on several occasions to get the money to do the replacement cost. That is bond issue money, and it's been turned down. While we do have operating levies, those are passed for a specific thing. In 2000, we earmarked that for, lower class sizes, and people vote saying, yes, I want to do that. This is a specific thing now that says we will repair and replace these buildings.
Jim, would you agree that at some point in a construction building situation that things do just simply need to be replaced?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with that. And that's never been Coast's position or my personal position to disagree with. There's just going to be natural disrepair and decay over time. And I also acknowledge that these schools are in disrepair and something does need to be done. But by adopting, if the voters will adopt Coast's position, they are not delaying the implementation of this plan at all. It doesn't delay anything at all. Phase 1 still goes forward. So yes, something needs to be done. The question is, how do we do it and how much money needs to be spent?
But your point about doing this in phases, I think they responded earlier saying that the phases really are interlinked, and in fact it does delay by doing it in phases. I mean, to be perfectly honest, you're saying you're not delaying it, but it would delay it to some extent, and it does raise the question of whether that state money would really be there.
Okay, well, why we need a commitment, though, over the next 10 years to $1 billion, I don't think that the plans being interlinked is enough of a reason. Secondly, we've got until 2005 until this first phase is planned. It's still, isn't that enough time between now and then to get this thing passed and come back to the voters?
I just like to make one other comment, and that is that, you know, this is not our core business in the district, and the Ohio Schools Facilities Commission has hired Turner Construction to do this work. This is their core business. In a sense, it's not necessarily putting the trust in us, it's putting the trust in them, someone who does this and has done it successfully for many years. They will be the people that will oversee the entire 4 phases of the project.
You know, one of the things that former Mayor Arn Bortz has brought up, and he's a partner in Town Properties, they manage lots of buildings around the region. His argument is not that the buildings don't need to be replaced or renovated. His point is that, and even though there is money being set aside for maintenance and upkeep, that the staffs that you have on board, school employees, the maintenance staff, the engineering staff, isn't capable of doing the work. That you need to go outside the system to maintain buildings if we make this huge new investment. What do you say to that sort of point that Arn has brought up?
One of my priorities is to have an audit of our maintenance department, have a complete audit to look at our capacity and what our needs are. And we may find out that we do need to go outside and look at some things or bring some specialized talent inside. And if I could just address that trust issue briefly. I don't believe Mrs. Warner was on the board back in the early 80s, were you?
No, no one on this board was here before 93.
And I was not here either, so at what point do we stop hammering each other over the head with the past when even Mr. Erling wasn't here back in those days doing what he's doing? When can we stop and agree that we have a problem here, guys? Let's move forward and fix it together.
Jim?
Well, again, that argument's been proposed many times. We talked about, you know, the Brandt Commission back in the 90s, which was a failure, but we were told, well,
I'd be careful about just shifting that off as a failure so quickly. A lot of changes were made, a lot of reduction in central staff. I mean, I do want to, I got to stop you from just saying that.
I'll just have to disagree with you and characterize it.
That's fine.
We were then told that when Adamowski came in, we're going to have pay for performance, and there were always going to be things were going to be changed. We've got a new administration, and we're going to realize all sorts of great things for the schools. It didn't materialize, or if it did, it was kind of a fleeting thing. I'm saying that I believe Mr. Frailey and Sally are committed towards excellence and that they will achieve that, but there's a problem with the voters themselves, and I think that they need to, for the sake of PR, reclaim the lost trust there. It failed for some reason back in November, and school levies traditionally are not the hardest things to get passed. So there's a.
I don't know about that. I've been around this a long time. They're pretty tough.
They have kind of an inherent bleeding heart quality that appeals to a lot of people, like the hospital levies, like the mental health levies, so on and so forth.
Kids sell.
Correct. Exactly.
I agree.
So, I haven't heard anything to dissuade me from my point that let's just wait and get through phase one.
Let me raise this though about Coast, and you know, every time there's levies, I frequently invite a member of Coast, not necessarily you, but other people. You know, and you always come and Representative Coast come and lay out perfectly rational questions, legitimate questions to be raised. But I frequently get the feeling, even from your name, that no matter what the answers to those questions are, you would still be opposed to any new taxes.
Okay. Fair question, and I've got an answer for you. First of all, Coast has its primary mission is to rein in the rate of taxes and spending consistent with the rate of inflation. That has been our position the entire time. And while we have never endorsed a tax levy, there have been times when we have not opposed a tax levy, which is what we will do. For example, the mental health levy, which I believe was a renewal, we simply backed off and didn't say anything and kept our mouths shut. So it's true we haven't endorsed a levy, we never will. But by the same token, we've not mounted opposition to it.
Have you ever backed off a tax increase, or have you ever backed off a school levy proposal?
We have never backed off a school levy proposal because every one of them has exceeded the rate of inflation, and we feel that there is no good reason why a tax levy should be faster or larger than the rate of inflation.
We have less than a minute. What would be a final statement you would want to make to the voters before they go to the polls on Tuesday?
Well, the bottom line is this. There's no argument that we don't have a problem with our buildings right now. So the question is, do we start working on them now? Do we continue to talk about delay, and whatever? And yes, breaking this up will cause a delay. At what point do we realize that it's going to cost us more later than it does now?
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been a very, and disagreements, but very good disagreements and good discussion. Thank you. We'll be watching on Tuesday.
Thanks, Dan.
The basic thing is go to the polls on Tuesday if you're in one of the districts that has an election, and join us next week for another Newsmakers and meet the men and the women shaping our community for the future. Have a good week.